Alright, hello everybody, and welcome to my tipping video for this round. If you watched my last tipping video, you'll notice this looks a lot different to what the last one did, but I'm gonna have to rush through it a bit this week. Haven't had much time to get this done, so rather than doing the Photoshop slides with my tips and all my leading goal kickers and BOGs and whatever, I'm just gonna do it on Squiggle to show my scores. So yeah, I'm probably going to do this most weeks going forward because I think it's just a little bit too much time consuming to do it the other way I did in round one. I think this works fine anyway. So first up, we've got on Thursday night, we've got the Western Bulldogs taking on Carlton. These two teams, in recent times they've had some pretty entertaining encounters. I think last year, Carlton looked set to win it. They were up by like 27 points late in the third quarter or something. Then Bulldogs rattled on a bunch of goals in a row, took home the 4 points in the end. In 2020, Carlton smashed the Bulldogs, I think, and the year before that it was pretty close as well with the Bulldogs win. So yeah, I think this will probably be another reasonably close encounter. I'll go Dogs by 17, I guess, or not, that's 16 points, 17. So yeah, that's that one. Next up, Sydney v Geelong at the SCG. So Buddy still 4 away from 1,000 goals. Geelong looked really impressive last week. They demolished Essendon. Essendon hardly looked like they were even trying, so I guess they weren't up against much, apart from Nick Martin, who kicked 5 goals. But yeah, Sydney are going in favourites for this game, but I think I'm going to actually have to tip against my own team here, because, I don't know, Geelong just despite not really coming up against much, they did look pretty impressive. Jeremy Cameron is still an outside chance to play after, well, it was looking like a potentially really serious injury. He had to go to hospital, but now he's out and he's, potentially going to play. Even if he doesn't, I think Geelong, I'm still probably going to go tip him into this game. I mean, I can't tip my team every week, so I'll go Geelong by 6 points. And up next, we've got Collingwood versus Adelaide at the MCG. Both these teams played reasonably well last week. Collingwood got an upset win over St Kilda. I definitely didn't tip that to happen. Yeah, I think Adelaide, obviously they found a star in Josh Rochelle. He almost got them over the line. They were down by 4 or 5 goals at half-time. Destroyed Freo in the third term before they came back and ended up winning by a point. So Collingwood probably do go in as favourites for this game. I'm almost tempted to tip an upset with Adelaide though. It's at the MCG, however, so I'm thinking, new coaches often win their first games, but I don't know if they really, they don't normally follow that up with a win. I'm going to tip Adelaide in this one. It's a bit of an upset. I'll go Adelaide by 14, I guess. Next up, Essendon versus Brisbane at the Docklands, Marvel Stadium. I think Essendon played horribly last week, as we've already discussed. Brisbane. They came back to get over the line at the Gabba against Port Adelaide. I tipped them to win that game pretty significantly. It ended up being kind of a close game. But they did. Joe Danaher, that was probably the most up and down performance I've seen anyone have. Joe Danaher, he kicked 4 goals and 3 behinds. He took one of probably the mark of the round on the siren of halftime, then handballed it off, and the score didn't count. So that was a bit of a strange moment. He rectified himself, kicked 3 goals in the second half, including 2 early in the last to give Lions momentum back. I think, based on what we saw last week, Brisbane should probably win this one fairly comfortably. I'll go in a bit of a high-scoring affair. Brisbane by 25. I think that's 25. Yeah, that's 25. Next up, Port Adelaide versus Hawthorn. Yeah, I really hope Port win this one because I made a bit of a bet with someone in my comments that if Hawthorn win, I'm gonna do something, and I'll put that comment up on the screen now. Just a little screenshot. I think Port should probably win this one fairly comfortably. I'll go Port by 38. It's at Adelaide Oval. I think they might have Trent McKenzie, despite looking potentially like a serious knee injury. Ali is out. That's big out, but I think Port Adelaide, they should get the job done fairly comfortably. They're definitely a lot better of a team than Hawthorn. They'll want to bounce back after a disappointing loss last week, so they should get the job done, I hope. Another game that should be fairly easy to tip, but upsets always happen. I'll go Melbourne by 34 in another bit of a larger margin. Melbourne looked really good last week. Gold Coast, they beat the West Coast, but West Coast aren't that good. With all the injuries they have, I've tipped them for wooden spoons, so like that doesn't really prove much. But Gold Coast normally do play well in the starts of season, but Melbourne are just another tier above them, clearly. So I'll go Melbourne in this one. Hawthorn versus West Coast. I saw that, I think West Coast do get Jack Darling back this game, as well as a few other players, but they still have an enormous injury list. I think they get like potentially 4 players back that are in their best 22 or roundabouts that. But yeah, they still have an enormous injury list. North Melbourne, I think, probably get the job done at Marvel Stadium for their first win of the season. I'll tip them by 16 points. West Coast played alright last week, but North Melbourne do have a couple of injuries in the back line, I believe. But I still trust them to get the job done against a very undermanned West Coast side. Next up, Richmond versus GWS. I think I'm probably going to go for a bit of an upset in this one, with Richmond winning. I believe that's an upset. It is at the MCG, so they want to bounce back after fairly disappointing. I'll go with this one for a pretty close game. 5 points. Richmond backing them to get the job done after a bit of a disappointing loss last week to Carlton. After leading by 21 points early in the last, Carlton rattled on the next 7 goals and took home the 4 points fairly comfortably in the end. So I'll tip them to bounce back. And final game of the round, Fremantle versus St Kilda at Optus Stadium. I think Freo probably get the job done fairly comfortably here. St Kilda, disappointing, very disappointing loss to Collingwood, who some people have tipped to finish wooden spoon. I had them bottom 4th and St Kilda in the 8. I think I'm already starting to reevaluate that decision to put St Kilda in the 8, but at Optus Stadium, St Kilda, I can't really see them getting it done. Freo, I mean, they almost lost to Adelaide last week. Really, their inaccuracy kept Adelaide in the game. If they were more accurate in that first half, they would have put them away way earlier. And I don't think that Adelaide would have charged back and almost won that game. So yeah, they are my round 2 tips. Let's see what the ladder's looking like according to my tips. So got Geelong on top still. Percentage gone down a little bit. Melbourne in second place. Freo third. Port Adelaide jump up the rankings a bit. Adelaide in the top 8 as well. Interesting. Well, that is because I tipped them for an upset win. Yeah, so Essendon still down the bottom. Really can't see that. They might not leave that bottom spot for a little while. So yeah, that's my tips for round 2. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Give me your tips in the comment section below, and I will see you on the next one.